I always say this to people. I benefit more from low expectations of anyone in the history of the world, because as long as I don't show up smoking crack, naked, like, oh my God.
All right, Hunter.
Yeah.
Hunter, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and a little part of Wilmington called Greenville, my whole life.
Tell me about your mom and dad.
My birth mother, Nelia, my sister, we called her Caspi. Her real name's Naomi. My brother and I were in an accident when I was just about 3. My brother was just about 4, and we're a year, day apart. And my mom and sister were killed in that accident. And then I think 5 years later, we got remarried. We say we got remarried.
You were how old when you lost your mom?
I was just about 3, about a month and a half away from my 3rd birthday.
That was in an auto accident?
Yeah. And I spent, I don't know how long, I think close to a month in the hospital with a traumatic brain injury. And my brother was in like a full body cast for that period of time. We spent a lot of time in the hospital after that.
You guys were in the back seat?
Yeah. And then we got remarried. I think I was about 5 years later, to my mom, Jill, who I consider my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story about the nurse that helped you in that accident.
Yeah, I didn't. It's an incredible story that there was a nurse that drove by. It's a beautiful story, and I had never known it. And she was the one that was first on the scene. She just happened to be there, and she was an ICU nurse, I think. And I didn't even know the story until after she died. I think it was her daughter that got in contact, but she saved us. She saved Beau and I. We would have most likely died, and they had to come in with the jaws of life. The car was completely, just unrecognizable, and it was. And our dog was in the car too, and I'm pretty sure that's true. But there's really the beautiful part about that, and I know that sounds crazy, but is that I lost my mom and sister, but I gained this extended family of not just my aunts and uncles, but the people that surrounded us are part of my life still to this day.
It's funny how different people's lives, some people's lives are pretty quiet and uneventful.
Yeah.
And others, like yourself, have some ups and downs that are just hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine getting through.
It's the one excuse that I don't have for the troubles that I've faced in terms of addiction and substance abuse is that I was extremely loved. I had a very traumatic experience as a child, and for the longest time, I rejected the idea that my addictive behavior had anything to do with that trauma, because I didn't want to. I always say that that addiction isn't an excuse, but it's an explanation. And I didn't want to think that that I wasn't in control of being able to find my way out of that. And if it was a response to a traumatic thing, then I wasn't in control. There's a part of me that was somehow kind of overriding everything from your morality to your decency, and just control, and so I kind of rejected that for the longest time until I got sober in 2019.
I think part of understanding how to navigate life is maybe understanding that we're not in control.
That's exactly, there's a reason why the Serenity Prayer is repeated so often, at least in the program, and I think for the longest time, I first tried to get sober in 2003, and I did, and I stayed, and it was all about alcohol then, and I hate the idea of a distinction between sobriety and being clean, because I think that alcohol is the most destructive drug known to man. And I mean, we could talk about that for endlessly. And people kind of get upset when I say that because, they're kind of protecting their own proclivities and the idea that, no, how could that be true? But it is. It's and also physiologically, it's the most destructive and distorting for the entirety of your body. But I got sober in 2003 and stayed sober for about 7 years, and I don't ever really think I understood, the idea of what I was, of the wisdom of figuring out what I could control and what I could not, and because it always kind of seemed to me like admitting a weakness, and this time was very different. I'd come face to face with a really, really, really dark place.
I want to get a lot deeper on your addiction story, but back to your childhood. You say you were loved. This was This was your dad that was mainly in place doing that, or both moms, or both.
Everyone, and we were surrounded. My Aunt Val moved into the house. My uncle Jimmy converted the garage into an apartment.
Because it's not easy to recover from losing a wife and a dog.
No, and it in every outward way, it was an idyllic life. And more than anything, my dad just hugged us to him, literally and metaphorically, and continues to this day. He's an amazing father. I always say to people that I don't care what you think about his politics. The fact of the matter is that I've never read about anybody. I've never, in fiction or memoir or on film, that is a better dad than my dad in every way. And that doesn't mean that I don't fight with my dad, and it doesn't mean that I haven't had times in which he was angry at me or I'm angry at him. But I was never, ever, ever uncertain of his love, no matter the consequences that I was facing, that he wouldn't save me from, and didn't save me from in many respects. And what I figured out with him is it's kind of the single most important thing about any relationship that you want to say is love, which is availability, presence, being there. Doesn't mean that you're going to solve anybody's problems, but just showing up and being available. And I don't know of anybody that's been had more significant and important things to do beyond their family than my dad. But there's never, ever been a time in which he did not prioritize us, his family, above everything.
You don't become president without having a whole arsenal of really great qualities. You just don't. And despite how much people hate and love our politicians, you don't become president of the United States without being a great person, at least in some ways.
Yeah.
Last year, the Palisades fire tore through Los Angeles. Most people saw that story. What fewer people saw is that 2026 is shaping up to be the worst wildfire year on record globally. The total area burned worldwide is already more than 20% higher than any year since 2012. That story is out there. It's just being told differently depending on where you look. Left-leaning outlets are focused on the U.S. response, what the government is doing, and who's affected locally. Right-leaning outlets are covering the global scale, the scope, the numbers, what's happening in other countries. It's the same crisis, but with two completely different lenses. Neither version is lying, but if you're only reading sources on one side, you're only getting half the picture. That's something I think a lot about doing what I do. The people I sit down with, their stories get filtered the same way, shaped by who's telling it and who they're telling it to. That's why I use Ground News. It's an app that shows you how any story is being covered across the political spectrum, side by side. You can see each outlet's bias, how reliable they are, and who owns them. You can actually compare instead of just getting handed one version of the news. Check it out at ground.news/SWU. You'll get 40% off their Vantage plan. And by subscribing or gifting it, you're directly supporting this channel too. That's ground.news/SWU. Now back to the video.
Well,
what would you say is your dad's
Yeah.
greatest quality?
His compassion. His ability to put himself in somebody else's shoes. And that's why he was such a great senator, too, is that he was able to break bread with people that, at least in that era of politics, that he vehemently disagreed with over, everything from foreign policy to domestic policy. But he always tells his stories. There's a senator from North Carolina. Nobody will remember him now, but he was the arch nemesis of progressives and liberals, and he was considered kind of like the most conservative, ultra-conservative senator and politician in the country, and his name was Jesse Helms. And I forget what Jesse Helms was on the floor of the Senate making a speech against the Americans with Disabilities Act. And Jesse Helms was railing against government spending, and this is another giveaway, and basically ADA is the thing that was put in place to make bathrooms accessible to people in wheelchairs, and theaters accessible to to the deaf. And my dad went to, and he was young because my dad got elected when he was 29, and he's the youngest person ever elected. And he went to this guy, Mike Mansfield, who was the leader of the Democratic Party at the time. And he said, I'm going to go on the floor and I'm going to rip him. And I'm going to go, he's immoral. He is, if you ever wanted the proof that Jesse Helms doesn't care about people, here it is. Mike Mansfield said, Joe, let me tell you a story. Jesse and Dottie Helms, 2 Christmases ago, were sitting together 2 days before Christmas, and they saw an ad in the paper for a disabled boy who no one would adopt because he was so severely disabled. And I'm making this part up, but he's 13 years old. He's in a wheelchair. He'd be in the wheelchair for the rest of his life. And he'd never found a home. And what if I told you that Jesse and Dot that day went and adopted the boy, and that you've met him? He's been here. He's with Jesse all the time, and you realize that, at least in that era, is that. I think my dad realizes if you could see the humanity in another person, that maybe that you could come to a compromise on the things that really mattered. I don't know if we're still there, but it's a lesson he imparted on me and my brother and my sister kind of all the time by example. he's able to see the person behind the mask. That's his greatest quality, I think.
That's a great one. How's your dad doing today?
He's good. I mean, this is nothing that's not public, but there was stage 4 prostate cancer, which metastasized into metastatic bone cancer, which is in like 4 parts of his vertebrae. And it's just at the very early stages. There's no pain as it relates to the cancer itself. But what they have to do to you is they have to put you on a hormone therapy that basically puts you into the equivalent of male menopause. They take your testosterone, which his was very high, from whatever that level is to 0, and that's wreaks havoc on anyone. And it just in terms of things like sleep and mood, and it's like menopause. And and my dad had more energy than anybody I've ever met, and so it's tough. The honest answer is it's been really tough on him, but he never complains about it. That's the other thing that worries me more than anything. I wish he would complain a little bit more, just so I knew. But I was just with him, and I went to home for Mother's Day.
That's great.
Yeah.
In your teenage years, tell me about them.
My brother and I were, and still are, just very, very close. And what I mean still are is like in many ways, he's constantly with me. But we were only a year and a day apart, and so our friend group was the same. But he and I were very different people. He was very outgoing and very much an extrovert, and very disciplined, and I was pretty much the exact opposite. I like to paint and read poetry and play with my army men, and so, but he was always my protector in many ways, and kind of dragged me along. And I had a great, by all outward accounts, a really great. But my teenage years from I think, grade school through high school is. I mean, I had a lot of friends, but I wasn't I was never content. I was kind of always discontented, uncomfortable in every situation that I found myself in.
That's the artist in you.
Scared of things, a lot of fear-based stuff. It's another thing that I've kind of come to terms with, is that, I didn't know where that fear was coming from. You couldn't say, well, oh, it's because of the accident, or oh, it's because of this. It's just a lot of the things that I did or failed to do were all based on this kind of this illusion that was all fear-based, that I had anything to fear at all. And I think more than anything, it was just the fear of other people's judgment. I was a kid that kind of would never dance at the school dance, whereas my brother would start people dancing, and that team kind of gave me the shielded me for a period of time. But I played sports. I played football and everything else, but mainly football. And when I was I think I probably started drinking when I would, had my first drink, I think. Like, the first time I know that I took a drink, and nobody else knew, but I was at like some big cocktail party. We'd go everywhere with my dad, Beau and I, no matter where it was, we were allowed to go. And And I forget where this was, where it was a Christmas party or something, and I took somebody's glass of champagne, not knowing what it was, and downed it. And then went and got another one and hid under the table and did it again, and then went and everything, and until I got sick. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And the reason that I remember it is because of not getting sick. I remember the feeling that it gave me. And it seemed to solve every problem in the world. And even then. And then I didn't drink. No one in my family, in my immediate family, my mom will have a glass of wine occasionally. My dad's never had a drink. And so there wasn't a kind of a permissive atmosphere of alcohol in my house at all. It wasn't anywhere. And but when I was in high school, I drank, and got me into trouble. And eventually, I think 3 days after I graduated, I was at the beach, and I was in a car. We were all drinking. Somebody had Coke on them. Cops came, got arrested. Went to the record was expunged, and pretrial probation at the time. And
you were arrested?
Yeah. And that scared the shit out of me. And so it scared the shit out of me about drugs, which were around, in 1988. I mean, but God, 1988. Jesus. Wow.
So you went on to college. You went to
So then I went to Georgetown, and I look back on it, and I did so many things that I didn't do to fully take advantage of my college experience. But academically, I did well. And also while I was there, I became really good friends with. When you go to Georgetown, every class every floor of every freshman dorm, there's a Jesuit, and usually young Jesuit. They're early, 30s, late 20s. And Jesuits are a really, really interesting order in terms of the Catholic Church, in that in order to become a Jesuit, you basically have to have your PhD in something, and you don't become a priest until it's like a 7 to 10 year process before that happens. So they're very mature, very, very, very educated, and educated not just in the catechism, but educated in really cool kind of esoteric areas of study. And a lot of the Jesuits that I knew then were very, very focused on the social justice movement within the church, particularly in Latin America. Long story short, Father Diziak became a really good friend of mine, and we started a program called the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, Jesuit International Volunteer Summer Program in Dangriga, Belize, and we went to kind of the most impoverished part of Belize, and we had a free summer camp for kids, and we had, so you teach in the morning and you do normal summer camp things, which now is like, I think, in 10 countries or something like that. But we did that first. And then that led me to, in college, I wanted to go to the Peace Corps, and after college. And another Jesuit, there was a friend of mine, Bill Watson, mentor of mine. I shouldn't say friend. I mean, they were incredibly wise guys, and he suggested that I do the Domestic Peace Corps, Jesuit Volunteer Corps, which is a national organization, but it's kind of like a domestic Peace Corps. And you make $80 a month. You live in the community. That you live in a group house with other volunteers. You pull your money for your groceries and things like that, and you work in that community. And so we were off of MLK in Northeast Portland, and I worked out of the basement of a St. Vincent de Paul church. And people that couldn't get their lights back on, or any of their utilities went out, or they didn't have money for groceries, they would come to me, and I would advocate for them to the system and food banks and things like that. And so I had a steady clientele of people that I did that. And I did that for a year. And then I met a girl, and we, not very long after met, we got married, and we had a child, and whose name is Naomi, who is my oldest, and I went to, and she was born the first year in December of the first year of law school for me. So
you went to Yale for law?
Yeah, I started at Georgetown though. I didn't get into Yale, and I'd always wanted to go to Yale, and I'd done really well on my LSATs, but it's like, they let in like 3%. They let in less for people that try to transfer, but I did really well at Georgetown, so I transferred and finished at Yale Law. Yeah.
At some point, you joined the Navy.
Yeah.
And you got kicked out of the Navy.
Yeah, I did.
When did the Navy fit into this?
Oh, not until much longer. I was in, when was that? 2014. So,
really?
Yeah. I think, or 2013. 14, I forget when. I was 43. I got a waiver for age, and but I really wanted to do it. And the reason I did, because in my family, the idea of service, there's no kind of higher calling than that. And my dad is probably the most disinterested politician in the history of the country in money, personally. And he's done well because he wrote a book, but he, for 40 years, was always ranked like having the least assets of any person in Congress, all 535, 100 senators and 435. And for us, it was always like service. What can you do? And my brother had gone into the Army National Guard after 9/11, and he was a lawyer, and he would then become the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. And I decided that I wanted to go into the Navy, and he kept saying to me, "Come into the National Guard, into the Army National Guard with me." But I think I liked the uniform, the Navy, better. Oh, what an embarrassing. And so anyway, I went into the Navy, and I was in the Navy for a year, but I failed a drug test, and I got an administrative discharge.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm jumping you
way ahead.
Yeah, way ahead. So let's get back to. So I mean, you've had, people love to focus on your failures.
Yeah.
But you built a career in Washington through law firms, international business ventures, board appointments.
Yeah.
You played in political circles. You've accomplished a lot.
Yeah. So I got out of Yale Law School, and I got offers from basically every law firm. We had Skadden and all the big ones, Jenner Block and a whole host of others. And I at that time in the early '90s, a lot of my class was going to work for not outside the law, so they were going to go work at places like McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, and so I got an offer to go to a couple of the large banks in Manhattan and New York, and I ended up going to work for a bank in Delaware, which was the largest employer in the state of Delaware, and it was the largest independent credit card company in the world at that time, and the reason I did is because I wanted to be near my brother. And
because you could have gone to New York, or
my family, yeah, exactly. And so I went back to Delaware, and I worked as a banker for I think it was 2 years, and I got up one day, and I was like, "What the fuck am I doing?" Like, it just was not me. And I mean, just like a corporate culture, just like It wasn't me, and they were wonderful, and they were incredible to their employees, and they transformed the state of Delaware, and in a good way, and they tried to get me to stay, and I decided to go. I went down to, it was the end of the Clinton administration, and I thought, okay, this is the way I can serve. I'll go and do that. And so I did, and I worked for Secretary Daley at the Department of Commerce, and I had the longest title in government, I think. I was the executive director of policy coordination for the Department of Congress and Commerce, and for e-commerce, when we used to call it e-commerce. At the early days of this is 99 through like the end of the administration, right before the bubble. And anyway, I did that for 2 years until the end of the administration, and the plan was to go into the Gore administration after that, and
That didn't work out.
and that didn't work out. So I went out and I started my own law firm. And my law firm, from I'd say 2001, 2002 to 2008 was great. I built a really great business, and most of the clients that I'd say 85% of my client base was all Jesuit universities. So a lot of those Jesuits that I knew at Georgetown had gone on to become presidents of universities. And I don't know if you know anything about the Jesuit university system in the U.S. in particular, but they're usually the oldest institution in any city, and they're all over the country, from Scranton, Pennsylvania, to San Bernardino, and everywhere in between, and they are incredible partners with most of the communities that they remain in. So, for instance, in Detroit, is now Detroit Mercy University. It's the oldest institution that, inside of Detroit and in the city limits. And at least when I was working with them, they had a dental school, and there are no dentists, literally, at least at this time in the early 2000s. Not a single dentist office had stayed in Detroit. Every single dentist office had moved out. The only availability of dental care was at Detroit Mercy Dental School, and they wanted to offer free dental care through a mobile dental clinics in Detroit. And so I would help them with things like that. And so I think I had, over the course of time, at least 15 or so different Jesuit universities that I did projects like that with. Actually, I really loved it. I loved that work. I loved building that business. But then when Senator Obama became the nominee and picked my dad, and then became President Obama and Vice President Biden, I gave up that work, because part of that work was going to Congress and trying to find where the money was available in different places to fund projects like that. And so I gave that up and started a whole new business, so there wouldn't be any conflict of interest, which seems a little silly, my thinking then or now, in light of what's going on now. But anyway, and I started another business because I'd also, during that period of time, I served on a lot of boards, and was the chairman, or if I wasn't the chairman, I was the director of chairman of the governance committee on most boards. And so I was vice chairman of the board of Amtrak, National Passenger Rail System, which is the largest rail system in the world. And I did that for, I think, 7 years. I became the chairman of the board of the UN World Food Program, which is responsible for 70% of the budget of the UN World Food Program, which feeds, I think, over 75 million people in 83 countries on a daily basis. It's the largest humanitarian organization in the world. It does all the airlift for the UN, does all the telecommunications for the UN, and our organization was responsible for maintaining and growing that budget, the available capital funds for them to operate. And when I was chairman, we increased the budget from, I think, 1.7 to 2.6 billion. And I did that for a period of time. I served on the board of Catholic Charities. I served on the board of a bunch of different, Truman National Security Project, Center for National Policy. I taught at Georgetown University. I was a adjunct professor for 4 years. I taught a course called the Art of Advocacy in the master's program at the School of Foreign Service. I had a lot of experience in very diverse, thing. Built businesses and
a hell of a resume.
Yeah, I was proud of my resume. And then I blew it all up. Yeah.
How did you blow it up? What made you blow it up?
Oh man. What makes any alcoholic or addict do what they do? And I think I'm coming into a deeper understanding of that. And it's kind of like the answer to that question is so obvious that it's painful. But I got sober in 2003 through that kind of whole run in DC. And the way that I got sober is that my brother came and picked me up and put me on a plane and sent me to a rehab. And I would never deny my brother anything. And the reason that he did is not because there's any insane behavior, but I'd go for a business trip that was supposed to be a day, and 4 days later I'd come home, and I would go on these binges and drinking, purely drinking. And so in 2003 I went to a place in the place that Eric Clapton started, and he did amazing work, and really, really great place. Very, very, very bare bones, but it's in Antigua, and that's how I think my brother, so easily convinced me. He said, "Yeah, just get on the plane and go down. You're gonna," and that's where I learned the program. I learned about a way out of not feeling this way, less about how to stop drinking and more about how to live life on life's terms, and I became. AA saved my life in many ways. Gave me it was really, really helpful to me. Just the principles. I take away all the other criticisms that people may or may not have about the program. The truth of the matter is that it's a place to go to realize that you're not terminally unique. It's a place to go to realize that the story that you're so ashamed of, that you think only you experience, is like the moment you walk into a room and tell your story, you have 6 guys tell things that make you blush. And that realization is a relief of that shame, comes in. Because make no mistake about it, people make this argument about, alcoholism, addiction. It's a disease, and it absolutely 100% is a disease. But some people make the leap to be like, so therefore we just should treat it like people that have cancer. Well, people that have cancer don't steal the wallet out of their mother's purse. People that have cancer aren't, rummaging through your cabinets looking for, pills. People that don't have cancer don't end up in motel rooms with prostitutes the way that I did. They might, but and so those things that you do in your addiction, it creates this cycle. At least it did for me. And I don't speak for any addict except myself, and I really mean that. I don't have any prescription. How you get better, I can tell you how I did. Is you go through this cycle of shame where you appropriately feel guilty about the things that you did, but it's really, really difficult for you to get below the surface level and get honest with yourself and then somebody else about the thing that makes you cringe every time you think about it. Like, I can't believe I did that. Like, I can't believe I was in that room. I can't believe I, did that drug. I can't believe I smoke crack. Like, oh my God. Like I can't, nobody, yeah, I've done cocaine before. Or, I've smoked cocaine. Like I love when people say that. What the fuck are you talking about? You fucking did crack. And that shame, if you don't be able to get honest about it, like radically honest about it, what it does is just hides back there. And then next time you come under an enormous amount of stress, and what you think is, I'm not good enough. Like I'm an awful human being. I'm a bad person. I'm not worthy of love. And what you end up doing is the thing that your brain is telling you to do. It's saying, I know a way out. I know the way out. Go get a drink. And I promise you, in 1 minute, you're going to feel 100% better. And that's what the thing you trust most in the world, your mind is telling you. Literally, it's saying over and over again. And you do. And here's the thing that people truly don't understand. They say, why do you do that? Because it fucking works. You do. I promise you, you're going to get the relief that you were promised with that first drink. Now, here's the problem. If you're like me, and that one drink becomes a gallon of vodka and 3 days supply of fucking crack and, $1,000 burning a hole in your pocket at a Super 8 motel, you're in deep, deep trouble. And that's the progression of it. And not everybody has to go through the progression that I did. But I did. I definitely did. And so, but it was a progression. So I stayed sober between 2003 and 2010 about, and I had a incredibly mundane relapse on a plane by myself, thought to myself, well, what would it hurt? I'm going to have a Bloody Mary. After 7 years of the big book in AA and an incredible network of friends. And I just did. I did. And I think it was all fear. It was a period of my time where I was transitioning this new business. I didn't have any money really. I had 3 kids in private school and a mortgage, and I was incredibly under enormous amount of stress. There was this expectation that your father's the vice president, all the world opens up to you. Not if you're a Biden, I promise you that. Not because of any other thing than this. Is it all of this bullshit about like this idea that, I was picking up the phone and having my dad do things for me? Never. The idea that I would ever ask my dad to do anything for me, for somebody that I was getting paid for, I would more go to the top of the Empire State Building and jump off because I thought I could fly. And I don't give a shit if anybody believes me or not. They can make up all the bullshit that they want. That was my life. And I had a lot of stress, and I took the drink, and that just started a cycle for the next 9 years. 9 fucking years of, I would drink, I would get sober, my brother would come along, my wife at the time, family, I'd go back to rehab, I would stay clean and sober, or so at that time just was all about alcohol. I would stay sober for a year, 3 months, 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. But it was a cycle of relapse and recovery that all the way went up until about 2016, 15. And in 2000, what was it? End of 2013, or Beau was diagnosed. I always get my dates mixed up. Yeah, I think the end of 2013, Beau was diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma. And that's brain cancer. And it's a death sentence. It's almost, not almost, it's a death sentence. And an average, time between diagnosis and death is, you're lucky if you make it a year and a half to 2 years. And anyway, I went through all of that with my brother, as did the rest of my whole family. But I was with him constantly at every doctor's appointment, and, every hospital visit, every experimental procedure, everything. And he didn't want to listen to it. He didn't want to listen to the numbers. He didn't want to know that he only had 0.2% chance of this or that. But I knew it, and we would go through and we'd do all these things, and you did these I look back and I feel like I put him through torture. Chemo and and radiation and this experimental thing that we did, and just torture.
What do you feel like you put him through then?
I think if I had it over to do it again, I wouldn't have done all of that, because it was incredibly ineffective. It maybe added days, maybe, but the procedures themselves are barbaric. You know what I mean? Radiation is a really awful thing, and it caused him to have, and part of it was from the tumor itself, but more than anything it was from the radiation that caused him to lose control of the right side of his body, his speech. His head was shaved pretty much the whole time with these giant scars, in which they did these, resection surgeries that are really awful. There's an open awake, craniotomy, where they take out pieces of your brain. And just the amount of time that we could have spent together. I mean, my brother would always say he found it harder and harder to fully say words, but he was completely there. He just couldn't get them out. This aphasia, and he would say, that's why I call my book Beautiful Things, because he would say beautiful things, and it was a code word not for beautiful things like material things. It was about like this, like us, sitting here. We'd be sitting at behind my parents' house or looking out. They have a pond behind their house. It's just like his mantra was, we're going to get through this, and that's what we're going to focus on. Not him becoming governor, not Dad becoming president, not not any material thing, but just this, like family and the things that are right in front of us that are just absolutely beautiful. I have a friend now, new friend, a Navajo, and I forget the word was it, and I was telling him about it, and he gave me this, and he said there's a phrase for that in Navajo, which is it loosely translates into beautiful things, and they say it all the time, and what that really means is it means transcendence. It means everything. The seeing the totality of the universe in all things, and just the beauty of it, the flow. And that's what he was trying to say. And Beau passed in, it's coming up on 11 years. And May 30th, I think. And my whole life fell apart. Just fell apart. Not his fault, my fault. Not my fault, nobody's fault. My marriage but effectively came to an end after Beau died. Grief does just horrible things to people. For the first time in my life, my out, the person I told you about when I was a kid, that would drag me onto the dance floor for my own good, he wasn't there. The same person that would come and grab me and say, we're going to rehab, you're going to get better, it's going to be okay. That kind of idea of that no matter what, that unconditional love, like that true, complete unconditional love, was gone, and my marriage came to a very abrupt kind of. It wasn't abrupt. We were married for 21 years, but she loved my brother too, and I think that and I don't know. I do know this is that I contributed everything to making the rational decision that we should get divorced. I mean, she'd put up with a hell of a lot, and but the timing of it all, it came at one time, and the coup de grace to me was that for the first time in my life too, my dad was not available. That thing that I talked about, he wasn't present. Because he was going through his, in a way that I still don't know how he survived. Sorry. Anyway, I stayed sober for about a year after Beau. I went to a rehab, stayed there for about 45 days. I worked with a sober coach that would take I would breathe into a breathalyzer. Everybody was concerned that I was going to kill myself. That I, not like with a gun, but that I was going to, do something so stupid that I wouldn't be able to return from. And for the first time in my life, I was living alone. And I stayed sober for the good part of a year. I had a relapse in the middle of the year around Christmas time. But then I went back and I did an outpatient program. And but at the end of that year, about a year after both that, the outpatient program that I was in wouldn't let me come back because I admitted that I had had a relapse and that I had used cocaine and I drank. And I said, okay, this is what I did. I went in, but they wanted me to take a urine test. And I said, I'm not going to do that. It's not protected by HIPAA. I had gone through this whole thing with the Navy. I'd had my medical records released unlawfully. My dad was still vice president of the United States. Like, I just knew that it would get out, and I didn't.
Well, if there was an official document saying that you failed a drug test,
another drug test after, and for every other reason, I said, but I want to be back in, and I'm telling you what I did, and they wouldn't allow me to, unless I took the drug test, which didn't make any sense to me, and I became enraged, and. It was on K Street, and down 2 blocks away was Lincoln Park, which is about, not that it makes a difference, but like four blocks from the White House, downtown DC. And I walked out, and I knew there was a person there that I'd known for 20 years from the neighborhood. My office used to be down there, and I first met her in college. They called her Bicycles, and she was a crack addict, and I walked to the park and I found bicycles. I said, I want to buy some crack. It was basically conscious decision on my part at that moment that it was the same thing as asking her to shoot me in the head. I knew that. I mean, I truly, truly, truly knew it. It was the coward's way to suicide. And that turned into a 3-year odyssey of just destruction and degradation and demoralization in a way that I've written about and I talk about, but I don't think people can fully understand how demoralizing addiction can be at that level.
So you're doing things like what? Hanging out in motels and...
Yeah. Yeah. I am instantly, one of the things is I got the crack. I smoked it. And what happened? It worked. It fucking worked. Not a care in the world. I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. And that went away in about 10 minutes, and I needed to smoke crack again. And that went away in about 10 minutes, and I needed to smoke crack again. And that went away in 10 minutes, and I needed to smoke crack again. Bicycles, who was a homeless woman on the streets for over 20 years, moved into my the apartment that I rented, and she would run out just to get crack. I mean, she's 68 years old. She's on her bike. And that became my life until I got kicked out of that apartment and just basically picked up and became itinerant. The combination of grief, and worse than anything is that I was drinking at least a handle of vodka every day, like a full gallon of vodka. And if I couldn't get that, by the way, the physical paralysis that would occur. I mean, I remember times in which I would wake up, and if I didn't have a drink next to me, after having passed out finally after like 3 or 4 days, if I couldn't put a substance in my body, I literally would have to crawl. The pain of it, the physical pain of it, was literally like torture. And I would go through the cycles and I went through that 3 years until I finally came out here.
And needless to say, you weren't working.
No. Well, ostensibly, this idea that I was, working, or I would say, maybe I'd tell people, I'll get back to you on that. You know what I mean? I wasn't answering my phone calls. I wasn't doing anything. I just was literally draining every resource that I had. And, that's one of the great, we don't have to discuss politics at all, but, I didn't do, from the time my brother died, which was the end of the when my dad was vice president, is all the time that they're talking about in terms of this kind of corruption or things like that, when my dad was neither for president nor vice president, and that I was a degenerate crack addict living out of hotels and motels. All of it. I mean, who was I? It's crazy. It's crazy. But regardless, I don't give a shit about that. I truly, people can have whatever narrative they want about whatever it is. And I think it's all, the cover's been blown off of that in the past year and a half. It's just ridiculous, But what happened is that I got, I was living out of motels. And there were times in which I would go to a rehab, times in which I would go to do, I did, Ibogaine, which I think is an incredible thing. It's really helpful to people, particularly with PTSD and heroin users and oxycodone and OxyContin and pharmaceuticals.
Opiates especially.
Oh yeah, opiates. Yeah, but I went to Tijuana and did, because that was what's going to save me. But I smoked crack all the way there. and then I got out and, I found my way up to Arizona driving, and I was like a bloodhound. I could find crack, in anywhere. I knew exactly where to go. And then,
What is it about addicts that they just know?
It's it becomes like a sixth sense. You just know. You can look at somebody. You can look at the way that they walk into a gas station. You can look at the way that they're standing outside of their stoop on a corner. You can, I go down to the flower district right now, and I could pick out 10 from 100 yards away of who knows where to get the drugs. I lived there. I was down there. I was down to the places that you're talking about, usually around 4 or 5 in the morning, you have it becomes truly like a sixth sense. And you can see the twitch in somebody's eye that the right person to ask. I remember I was driving, thinking that I was going to drive across the country, and I made it to Nashville, and I decided I got to go to sleep. I'm not going to make it, because really I didn't need sleep. I needed more drugs, and I had to go find drugs in Nashville. I'd never been to Nashville before. I found it within 25 minutes. I just drove, found a gas station, waited there for about 15 minutes, saw a guy walk in, saw him walk out, saw what he bought, rolled down the window and say, "Hey, can you help me out?" 35 minutes later, I had crack. Yeah.
Where was your father's career at this point?
Well, he had finished as vice president, and he was gearing up potentially to run for president. And, as I said, it was that period of time, is everybody, for the first time ever, there was this chasm and disconnect, presence, we're all so devastated. Beau was not the glue, because we were all the glue, but he was he radiated hope, no matter what. Beau did. And what I mean by hope, and hope in the greatest sense of the word, that everything's going to be all right no matter what. Like, that's what he radiated. And when we lost that, central gear for a period of time, the mechanism was very, very broken in all of us.
Was your father concerned about your situation as he's approaching an election?
Oh, yeah. He called me every day. He tried to find me, and I'd always lie to him, and I'd tell him, I'm at rehab, or don't worry, I'm doing good, if he got me. Otherwise, I just avoided it. I think my father knows me better than I, at that point, knew me better than I knew myself. And they had interventions. I did go to rehabs during that period of time. I escaped from rehabs during that period of time. My Uncle Jimmy, who's my best friend, he found me in I don't know how many different hotels and motels, and, brought me, back in. I was not having any of it at this time, though. I didn't have anybody to, say, you're not doing this, like Beau would. And so, what they didn't really know, but they knew in the back of their minds, is that, so many addicts, I think, feel this way, and they sometimes don't even like admitting it to themselves or even talking about it, because I think a lot of people think that it's kind of the ultimate weakness. I was killing myself. It was not a soft attempt at suicide. It was an attempt at suicide, whether the physical body or just I was killing my soul. I was killing any presence that I would ever have in my children's lives, in the lives of the people that love me. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not like you don't have any rational thought when you're, at that gas station picking up a guy that is carrying a gun, going to a neighborhood that, you stick out like a sore thumb with, a couple $1,000 in your pocket. You're committing suicide. You're committing suicide. And I did that over and over and over and over again. There was nothing glamorous about it. No matter how many pictures people show of my digital footprint that they stole from me. Number one, clearly I didn't take those pictures, but the people that were around me, at the same time, what people don't understand about addicts is that also in that moment in which people do awful things, there's some of the addicts that somehow hold on to a humanity, you can read it on them. They're so fucking smart. They're so ingenious. They are so resilient. And their lives are exactly that, are they're examples of that resilience. Who is able to do what a penniless crack addict is able to do on a daily basis to survive and not say that is extraordinary? It's fucking extraordinary. And it's not just because they're driven by the drug. What you find is, at least my experience, is the smartest people I know, I mean just pure raw intelligence people I know I've met are addicts. Me not included. And so,
I've seen that as well.
The contradictory part of that is that most people that haven't experienced addiction themselves or haven't been in the rooms that we've been in or that I've been in, they go, what are you talking about? Like the depiction of the crack addict, which is really funny, is the Dave Chappelle, depiction of the crack addict. The depiction of the crack addict I know, of bicycles, single woman in Washington, D.C., through 4 seasons, through winters and 100-degree summers, with nowhere to live, has survived. And not only survived, she figures it out, man. And I could tell 100 stories like that, 100 stories. So that's why the truth is, the people I admire most are the people that were able to come back from that. And be human, that didn't have what I had. I mean, I was like, people say, well, he's just privileged. Fuck right, I was privileged. I was incredibly privileged. My dad was president of the United States. That's the point. All that privilege didn't save me. Didn't save me from shit. But when you are an addict, it doesn't matter how much privilege you have. It's all out the door. Talk about the great equalizer. And so what that period of time did to me, it literally stripped me down to nothing. I mean, all the constructs, all of the things that I thought that mattered, beyond the things that I know that mattered, love and my family and people that love me. And it just tore them away. And so I was out here. I'd come out and I told everybody that I was going to a rehab, but I didn't. And I truly, this time, planned to kill myself. And I didn't know how I was going to do it exactly, but I knew I was going to kill myself. I had so much shame. So much shame. Compounded by the 2 years of just, degenerate behavior. Like when they go, oh, he was a crackhead and he's degenerate. I'm fucking A right. I was definitely a degenerate crackhead. 100%. 100%. And I was here, get out of the grace of God for some reason, and I have no idea to this day, other than that, is I met Melissa. I met this person, this stranger. The way that we met doesn't really matter. We were somebody, it's a long story. I talk about it in my book. But strangely enough, I agreed to meet this person, and I go and I sit down, and the first thing I say to her, I look her in the eye, and I don't know what it was, but it was almost like my brother was looking back at me. And I said, I know this isn't, and I don't mean this romantically. I said, but I'm in love with you. I literally said that, the first thing I ever said to her. And I sat down, and she didn't run. I mean, literally, she, you see me coming and somebody says that to you, you get up and go, what the fuck am I doing here? She didn't run, and within an hour, I told her everything. I told her everything. She said, I'm addicted to crack. I hadn't told anybody that it was crack. Drugs, cooking, nobody, other than people that I did crack with, or that knew it, obviously. And she said, well, that ends now. And for some reason, I believed her. And it didn't end right then. It didn't end that next hour. But it ended the next few days. And I took my last drink or drug on, I think, I say June 1st. I can't remember whether it was May 30th or June 3rd, but June 1st. It's the last time. And dates and anniversaries didn't really matter to me anymore in terms of stuff like that. For some reason, it was hard. It was really, really hard the first 3 months. And what people don't understand about that haven't experienced it is it's really easy to get off cocaine and crack cocaine, which, by the way, I've said this many times before, and the only reason I say it is because of the misconception of what crack is. It's sodium bicarbonate, cocaine, and water and heat. That's all that crack is. And it's the detox from that is number one, it's not life-threatening in any way. It's uncomfortable for about 3 days, and then it's just mildly uncomfortable for the next 25 or so. Coming off a gallon of vodka will kill you. Truly, it'll kill you. And so that's why I say I got sober on June 1st. That's when my detox began. And I don't remember if part of that was that Melissa mercifully gave me like a shot when I was going into delirium tremens, when I was going into DTs. And because it will literally kill you. And it's the only drug that actually will kill you other than benzodiazepams, which is basically like freeze-dried alcohol, because it impacts every single organ in your body. Your entire physiology is soaked in the alcohol, and your bloodstream becomes not psychologically dependent on it. It becomes physiologically dependent upon it, and you will go into seizures if it is not fed that alcohol. And it's painful at that level. I mean, it is painful, and I mean, I don't know how many times I've experienced it in my life. It is like the idea of just that pain, you would never go back to a drink again. I mean, I can feel it right now. I mean, it is seared in my brain. And she did the really, really hard work. She took my keys. She took my clothes. She took my phone. She took the computer. She became my jailer for that first week. And it's not fun to be a jailer for somebody that you love, but particularly not fun for somebody that you love and realistically you just met. And she did all the hard work of helping me get clean and sober, and slowly folded the people that she knew were desperate to know how I was and where I was and how I was doing back into my life. She erased every other phone number from my phone, literally. If it didn't have the last name Biden in it, she took it out. She then got rid of the phone altogether and got a new phone. And I say that, and for people to understand, it's because I was getting calls constantly from drug dealers, and for people to understand, like this whole kind of thing with the prostitutes is one of the reasons that there's so much as relates to the prostitution is because those are the people that have the drugs and know where the drugs are. And they aren't per se directly dealers, but they are the access point. So for like whether it was a strip club or a phone number, and she wiped all of that out from my life because when I kind of disappeared, their source of income disappeared with it. And she cleaned all of that up as I got better. And I literally, and what I would do, and I did for that first 3 months, there was a little shed at the house that we were living in, and she put a desk in it and bought me paint because she knew I loved to paint. And I would have this roll of Yupo paper, like a giant one. And I would roll it out on the desk, and she got me these giant rolls off of Amazon. And I would just sit, and I would get up about 5 a.m, and I would be so out of my mind, and I would go down there, and I would just paint all day for 12 hours at a time. And I'd cut the roll, and I'd roll out another one, and I would paint. And it filled my hands and my eyes and my head. And all I could do, and I would do these little intricate things with alcohol ink, and then I realized one day I had a metal straw that I would blow the alcohol ink with, and a little thing, a little dropper that I would put the alcohol with. And I looked at myself, and I realized I had copied, because it became so ingrained, the thing that make crack so horrible, which is that oral fixation along with ignition and a thing and a pipe and a thing. And I realized, I don't care. It gave me something to do, a purpose that I found a modicum of joy in that period of time. And I haven't stopped painting since. And all the painting that I did in the 50 years before that, which was a lot, doesn't come close to what painting means to me and become to me, and not just as a meditative practice, but for a source of facing my fear. The creative process to me is a beautiful thing in and of itself, but the thing that is the most liberating of it is when you let it go for someone else to see, because the thing that I was most afraid of my entire life was your judgment of what you thought of me. And this feeling that you're seeing right through me. You're seeing right through to the kid that got arrested when he was 18 years old and is not worthy to be this school. You're seeing right through the kid that stood in the corner because he was 4'11" in as a freshman in high school, and was embarrassed to dance with girls because he hadn't even really gone through puberty yet. You're seeing the kid that was afraid to sleep in his bed and would always sneak into his brother's room because he was scared to death of the night because he lost his mom and his sister. Seeing that's the person. And so for me, the creative process and showing people my art became just one of the most liberating things, and I found an enormous amount of strength and confidence in it. It just became a gift to me. And then the whole world fell on her head. Then the whole world.
With the laptop?
But yeah, with all the Trump stuff, I became the central focus, I became the way in which if you ever want to, it's the oldest trick in the book in politics is that, it's, if you want to really, really figure out a way to do harm to your opponent, you attack their greatest strength. You don't attack their weaknesses. Everybody knows their weaknesses by now, particularly if you're like my dad and been 50 years in public service. He's a gap machine and he talks too much and all that kind of stuff. Well, what was the thing that Joe Biden was most well known for? His most well known, his greatest quality, his greatest strength is that he is an incredible father and has an incredible family. And he's devoted to them. So what do you do? Well, he's got one remaining son who we know by virtue of the fact that he got kicked out of the Navy, and all you got to do is walk down Lincoln Park in D.C. and see him sitting with homeless people, is that he is the weak link. And they came really hard. It led to an impeachment. Trump put me at the center of it. It led to, they stole or hacked and cobbled together from multiple different devices, 20 years of my entire digital life, every single thing, every text message, every email, every photograph I took, every photograph taken of me, every voicemail. They had voicemails. They had voicemails from my dad at 3 o'clock in the morning calling saying, honey, where are you? Please, you need help. Let me help you. I mean, they played that over and over again as if it was some kind of evidence of something. And they got it all. They say it came from this one source, which clearly didn't come from one source. And 2 weeks before the election, they drop it on the American people and say, this is Hunter Biden, this man's son. And the thing that they showed in the New York Post was me, a picture smoking crack. Every single thing that they said after me, after that, becomes believable. You're involved in bribery, Ukraine, China, and this, that, and the other thing, it's a common tactic in propaganda. Is that if I can get you to believe the worst thing about somebody, then it becomes that much easier for at least a percentage of you to believe a bad thing about somebody. And that's what they were able to do. And they flooded the zone. They had set up literally teams. They called it the Manhattan Project. And there's a guy named Vishbara and Guowang Zhou and Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani and Konstantin Kulik and all these actors, and they just flooded the zone. And they used the New York Post I was on the cover of the New York Post more times in 1 year than any person in the history of the paper. In the history of the paper. So
you're saying the laptop scandal?
Yeah.
That was gigantic news.
Yeah.
Was something they concocted?
Oh, 100%. I mean, here's what they didn't. And this is where I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about the way in which I say the nuance of this. Yes, there's a laptop. Yes, there's a hard drive. Yes, it was hacked. Yes. Those pictures are mine. Yes. Those emails were mine. Yes. The text messages, yeah, they were mine. The voicemail from my dad, yeah, it was mine. All of it. But you know what? The laptop didn't prove anything about bribery, corruption, Chinese influence, Ukrainian, nothing. You got 20 years of my digital footprint. I think 25 years of my digital footprint. They got everything. And by the way, I mean, I've written a whole book about this. Whether I'll release it is completely sourced from Senate Intelligence Committee, all these different things. It came from at least 6 different sources, all of that digital information. At least. Some really bad actors. They cobbled it all together and they put it in Rudy Giuliani's hands, and they said, you know what the first thing that he said? He went to Newcastle County, Delaware, to the state police. And he stood on the courthouse steps with Bernie fucking Carrick, and he said, this has evidence of child exploitation. Ever heard anybody ever say that again? They have it all. You can go online right now and see every single goddamn picture I ever took or that was stored on my iCloud. The only person in the world that I know of, every single thing, you can go online right now and still find it. All of it. And you know what it didn't prove? Not a single goddamn email in which I said, hey, Dad, I need your help with this because I'm getting paid to do this for so-and-so. Not one. It didn't prove anything except the one thing, which is that I was a degenerate crack addict. And for a 2-year period of time.
Which was already news.
Yes. I had already gone into the New Yorker and I told the whole story. Because I knew the only way that I was ever going to come out from under this is that was the difference this time and I don't know. I do know. I knew in my soul if I was ever going to get better, I had to get honest with myself. I had to get honest with my family. And by extension of that, I had to get honest with everybody. Because if I wasn't going to get honest with myself, they were going to write the story about me. And so It wasn't because I was courageous that I was all of a sudden came up with this idea of radical transparency and courage and here's everything. Come look at me. It wasn't like I didn't wake up one morning like in a heroic form and say, I'm going to do this because I feel like I'm strong. They did it to me, but it became literally my superpower. What are you going to say? I can sit down with anybody. You're going to say I was with prostitutes? Fucking A right I was. You can go find their numbers. They're still online. Because you'll find everything. You were, I have 6 sex tapes of you. Yep. Go. You want to go look at them? I'm over it. They're there. Whatever it is. What's the worst thing that you could do to someone? The worst thing I think this is the part that I don't understand how people don't get this. I don't care who you are. You think that's right? I take your phone right now? Not your phone. Give me access to your cloud, to everything you've ever done. Also all the stuff that you've deleted off your phone, every message. Now let me take that to your school newspaper. Let me put that on your Facebook group, all of it, unfiltered, over and over. We'll do that on Fox News. I was the 3rd most spoken about person on Fox News for a 3-year period of time. The only people that had name mentioned more than mine were Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
But what's interesting about this whole story with the laptop is that if your dad was a plumber,
yep,
nobody would give a shit about any of this.
The only people that would give a shit are the people that I call the cops to have arrest for breaking in and stealing my laptop,
right,
or stealing or hacking into my phone.
Right, but this whole thing was motivated because of who your dad was.
That's it. Didn't have anything to do with me.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
And then you come up with all of these things. Well, bribery. You know who accused me of bribery? A guy named Alexander Smirnov, who was a confidential FBI informant who later got arrested for lying to the FBI. And all of a sudden, who is an Israeli, Russian, U.S. citizen who went to prison for lying about that because it was all bullshit. And somehow he's missing from prison now. He's missing from prison. The other guy, a guy named Gal Luft, who was an international arms dealer who's wanted by Interpol, made the same claim, who's an Israeli U.S. citizen who is a fugitive from justice, both from the European Union and Interpol and the FBI, who's supposedly living in Tel Aviv right now.
There's a great video. It's a fantastic video on Mother Jones with Steve Bannon speaking about how the entire scandal was orchestrated and concocted and handed off to Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
They called it the Manhattan Project.
The media just ran with that thing and just made it.
They ran, and then, so here's what happened. Okay, see, none of this is about things that I actually give a shit talking about. But here's then what happened. So Dad wins the election, and they say that's the reason they suppressed. It was all about the suppression. That story about the laptop not only was not suppressed, it has been the biggest story. You cannot say Hunter Biden without somebody finishing it by saying laptop. You can't. And by the way, and they put all the contents online, which is a violation of the law. They use those pictures. Well, just say those pictures are mine, okay? Because I have admitted from the very beginning, yeah, that was me. Some of them actually look pretty good. And yeah, that was me. That was me.
But you've already admitted that you had a drug problem.
Yeah, but by the way, under what circumstance are you allowed to appropriate that image and show a picture of me naked, regardless of whether it's blurred out, on any social media or on anywhere? It's called revenge porn. Melania just passed an entire law, put people in prison for doing that to people. It doesn't matter whether you're a news agency. There is no news in showing me in having sex with another person where you see me, except for a little blur around my private parts. Marjorie Taylor Greene held it up in Congress at a 6-foot blowout. Can you imagine if that was Ivanka Trump? And everybody goes, oh, that's ridiculous. Really? Really? Who hasn't taken nudes? Now, I took a lot. Who hasn't taken nudes? Do you want that done to your son, to your daughter, to your dad, to your mom? How about that text that you sent out of anger to your daughter or your dad or a coworker where you said something really stupid and angry? How about all of them? everything. And here's the cool part, though. That happens, and you're lying in bed, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and you wake up, and you've been dreaming all night, and it's all awful. And you look over, and there's this amazingly caring, loving, beautiful woman that you know will literally do anything for you. And your newborn son, and you say, am I going to live or die? Am I getting out of bed today? And I said, I'm getting the fuck out of bed. And you know what? What can you do to me now? Now, they proved that they could do a lot more. But each time, it's exactly that. You know, there's this thing, I literally, and I sound like an esoteric asshole, but I was reading the Gnostic Gospels, the book about the Gnostic Gospels. And these are the books that weren't, the Gnostics in the beginning of the millennium, right after the death of Christ, in the first 200 years after Christ's death, there were these prophets, and 4 of the Gospels became part of the Bible, but these ones were all excluded, and not only excluded, but burned, and they found these ones. And there's one thing from this one called the Acts of John. And I'm not a religious person at all, but I think that there's a perennial philosophy that from Christ to Buddha to the Upanishads, in which they all say the same thing. And part of what they say is this: learn to suffer as I do in order to be able not to suffer. The only way that you get to true gratitude is to be grateful for all of it. I'm grateful that I was a crack addict, and I don't say that with even the slightest bit of irony or bullshit. It has given me to me right here. There's no way that I would have gotten through that. Not because I don't think well of myself, but I know that I'm not moving to Rishikesh and being a monk for 7 years and coming out and thinking that I've figured out how to live life. And what's really important, I know what it is, at least for now, simply because it has all been taken away from me. All that addiction took away from me, and then all of the consequences took away from me. Any sense of me being better than anyone or having to be better than anyone. I get to approach you, and you get to see all of me. You get to see the nude pictures. You get to see me in grief. You get to see me at my worst. You get to see everything about me. You get to see all of the disgusting piece of it and all of the beautiful pieces of it. And you get to see all of it in wild technicolor, completely nude, literally completely nude in the public square. And you know what? And here I am. I've just broken down every barrier that you could possibly have to find a connection with me. That's beautiful. And and this is joy. That what they did is they thought it would kill me, and what it did, I was completely, not in the religious sense, completely reborn. And it doesn't mean I'm a good person, like the people want me to be a good person all the time. It doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that I still don't worry about how I'm going to pay the bills and pay off my goddamn lawyers and shit like that. It doesn't mean that I have figured out everything about how to be with family and children and it doesn't mean any of that. What it means is I just know that if I just do the next right thing today, show up, be present, I have a chance. And so I don't do gratitude lists anymore about like, oh, I'm grateful that I'm in Malibu or in Santa Monica and it's beautiful today. I am grateful for that. My gratitude list, though, is I'm grateful for that time in New Haven, Connecticut, off of 95 at the Super 8, when they stole my car. I really am. I can think of those moments of where I really thought that I was done for. That I was about to get killed. You know why? Because there are people still there. And I want, in some way, for us to break this habit that we all have to think that we can't talk about it. Everybody's going through something. Everybody. I am in no way unique. I'm in no way the first addict in the United States of America or the world. I am in no way the first person that did degenerate things while they were being a degenerate. I'm in no way the first person that's ever come back. So why don't we talk about it more? Why don't we all get a little bit radically honest with each other about where we've been and how far we had to climb to get out from under it? And what a gift. What a gift to be able to be that person, even in just my little small way. Talking to you. Talk to whoever wants to talk to me about it. I'll talk to anybody about whatever they want to talk about. I literally have nothing to hide. What an incredible thing to have. What an incredible gift to have. I got it.
You went through the ultimate gauntlet.
Yeah. I also find I cry a lot.
You went through the ultimate gauntlet that the media just put fertilizer on, and it spread and spread. And you became the most...
They were writing 3.5 articles a day between the Daily Mail and the New York Post for over a 2-year period of time. 3.5 average articles per day.
You're the biggest pariah.
Yeah.
I can recall.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to be your biggest nightmare. I'm going to keep talking.
No, but
you know what? They've given me this incredible platform. For some reason, if you show somebody naked smoking crack in a hotel over and over and over again, and then they show up, and I always say this to people, I benefit more from low expectations of anyone in the history of the world. Because as long as I don't show up smoking crack, naked, like, oh my God.
No, but
he's okay.
No, but seriously, I used to like Rudy Giuliani at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was a great mayor of New York.
Yeah.
And now after seeing how he handled that laptop situation,
yeah,
I've lost all respect for him.
He lost all respect for himself, too.
His legacy is now going to be that he's a con artist.
Yeah.
Selling this lie.
Yeah.
And he probably knew what he was doing, but he's doing it. It's like the money that's behind all this kind of media witch hunting.
Yeah.
For what purpose? I guess to get one candidate to win or another one to lose.
By the way, for the most important purpose in the world, was the most powerful job in the world, the most powerful people in the world. It's one thing that, I this whole idea like, well, there's some conspiracy. I'm not, like, it's all there. You can see it all. You can see the people that were involved in it. And because it's all in the open. And they expect us all to move on. And truth of the matter is, I don't care. But I really, and one of the reasons I don't is because I really do. Like, thank you. Thank you. And I really mean it.
To have gone through that gauntlet, as I call it, had to either break you and make you relapse forever or build you into who you are today.
Yeah.
There was no middle ground.
There's no middle ground. I think in some instances with people, and the vast majority of them, there can be that middle ground, which is a dangerous place to be as an addict. But in my instance, no. I mean, look, I got sober and clean and sober, as I said, June 1st, 2019, and I've not touched a drink or a drug since. And I don't, and I know at least for a day I'm going to make it. And I am literally invincible to that hate. Like, I've received it all. Like, for some reason, they were able to weaponize that addiction in a way, which I think is so dangerous for so many people, by the way. Because how many people got scared to shit about telling their story if they watched what happened to me?
Absolutely.
What's on their computer, what's in their digital life, things they've said or done. And here I am say, you know what? You can survive anything. the greatest public humiliation, campaign in that I know of, and I am here to tell you, it is the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
The worst thing that happened to you is the best thing that ever happened.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, I believe that.
I really mean it. Like I said, and the piece that I love about it so much is what I've found out is like a lot of people that are infamous or famous or public figures, understandably, between the people that witness their rise or their fall, there's a distance between them. There is no distance between you and me. My public humiliation is all based around, things that I'm fully, completely, radically transparent about, And so all of a sudden, you can talk to me about anything. Because what are you embarrassed about? What are you afraid of? Not with me. Nothing. Like, you're not afraid to approach me to tell me your story or thing because you know for certain mine's worse. Or at least equal.
Yeah. And then on top of it, there were these lies.
It's a beautiful thing. Oh, yeah. I mean, look.
The lies about...
that will all come out, yeah.
Burisma.
Yeah.
And even saw things about you were dealing with Chinese child trafficking.
Yeah.
But, just they're making the worst possible stories they can possibly make.
Yeah, they concocted that piece of it became the first piece of it. What's the thing? Rachel Maddow did a whole show about this, and I literally have a block. It's a propaganda tool in which they use that in particular. If they could accuse you and even get like 2-3% of the people to believe that you're a pedophile or a sex trafficker or whatever it is, then it becomes exponentially easier for them to believe that you're guilty of bribery. I mean, there was a point in which Sean Hannity reported that I was connected to or responsible for the COVID getting out of the Wuhan lab with George Soros. There was a whole report done on Fox News, and it went through Daily Mail and all these other organizations that were part of that Murdoch empire, in which, and the Russians picked it up, in which I was funding a lab in Ukraine to infect migratory birds to spread disease through our adversarial relationships, particularly in Russia. I mean, it's like crazy. And they would do these things over and over. And I was one time, let me give you the example I give all the time. I'm walking, me, Bowie, he's in a Chewbacca, it's Halloween, he's got that really, he's 2 years old, he's got the cutest Chewbacca outfit on, like the real one, like he looks like a little Chewbacca. And he's on my shoulders. And Melissa and I, and her father-in-law, and my father-in-law, her dad, was visiting from South Africa. And it was still during COVID, like the end of COVID. So we're eating outside at a place in the hills called the Old Place up in Cornell. And it was a beautiful fall day. It's like it's the coolest thing. Everybody's looking at Bowie, like just makes him smile, And this woman and this man, about my age, come running up to me. They get their cameras out and they go, "You're a pedophile, you should be executed for treason." And they're reaching. I mean, like, and Bowie, is like, he's like this on my head now, like holding onto my hair. And Melissa comes up to push. I stop it when we get in the car. And everybody's quiet. And it's just like, it was so violent. I mean, like really scary kind of violent, even, we get home.
And your father-in-law's there.
And my father-in-law, who just lost his mom. Melissa just lost her mom. And strangely enough, to glioblastoma, stage 4, the same day my brother died, 6 years apart.
Wow.
And Lee's sitting there, my father-in-law, and he's just like, what motivates someone to be that hateful?
They drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
They believe.
Next day, I read a story online about a woman that was a teacher in 8th grade in like San Bernardino or something. She's teaching her class. Somebody videotaped it that me and my father were Satanist pedophiles. And
Teaching a class this.
Yeah, an 8th grade class. And they go home and they talk to their parents, and then you go on and you turn on, InfoWars or something, and then you go on and you watch Sean Hannity, and then my name is mentioned over and over again, and you see me. I think people think that I was smoking crack all throughout the entire time my dad was president.
Sure.
I'm 100% certain
yeah.
they are. They're shocked when they learn that I've been sober for close to 7 years now, and they're like, "Well, that's not true." Well, according to the Bureau of Prisons, it used to give me a probation. They gave me a random drug test every like 3-4 days over the course of the last 4 years.
What is wrong with all of us? What's wrong with our country that this hate and this weaponizing of something that you're, a failure of yours has to be just blasted all over the world, and we're going to do this to hurt your dad, basically, ultimately, is what they're aiming at.
Here's what I think.
What's wrong with this?
I think that there's really, really smart people. Like David Brooks wrote an incredible book about it. And what was that book about? Anyway, a lot of really, really smart people have had an enormous amount of really, I think, important commentary about the way in which our culture and our communities have been disintegrating right before us. That we don't go to restaurants together anymore. We don't go to movie theaters. We don't go bowling together. We are more divided than we've ever been, not just politically, but in every single way, supposedly. And here's what I say: is that the next thing that happens is we just ask the question that you do: is what's wrong with us? Okay, my answer is nothing. Nothing's wrong with us. There's about 10 to 15 people that are all close to being literal trillionaires right now that introduced this little thing called social media to us. And you see the rise in this narrative that we are all divided and that we are all that we were never going to be able to come back together, MAGA versus lefties, well, like all of this stuff. It literally coincides with the introduction of social media in our lives. And how do I know that they are the main culprit of this? Is because we've had I don't know how many whistleblowers come before Congress and testify and say, here at Facebook, we have an algorithm that we know leads to teen suicides, a 300% increase in teen suicides over a 4-year period of time between girls between the ages of 11 and 14. It's an algorithm that did that, and we know that. 3,000% increase in girls being admitted to emergency rooms for self-harm. And we know it's doing it. Here's all the documentation.
And the birth rate has gone to zero.
And here's all the documentation for it. And you know what happens? Nothing. Because Mark Zuckerberg picks up the phone, writes a $100 million check here or there, which is like literally a drop in the bucket. I don't think people truly understand the difference between $1 million and $1 billion, let alone $1 billion and $846 billion, which is Elon Musk's words right now. I mean, they don't understand it. The power, and they know, and we are being fed, every one of us, I don't have it on me, every one of us has a bag of heroin in our pocket. Every one of us. I was riding on a plane the other day, and I'm sitting like in row 13, like C, and then in 12C, there was a 13-year-old girl, and she had a tablet. And from the moment that we got in the air and she was able to connect to the Wi-Fi, for the 5-hour flight from the East Coast she was just, one after the other with social media. Just boom, boom, boom. And she couldn't have been more than 11, 12 years old, okay? And I would look and I went, oh my God, like Jesus. And then I would look back at my phone and I'd go, boom, 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 get my dopamine hit. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing things that make me really mad. I'm seeing things that really trigger me. I get excited about. Donald Trump did this. These people did this. This Republican got arrested for that. This, and I get mad. I get angry. And they're all bad. And it's all bullshit, man. It's all bullshit. We didn't do anything. This is being done to us. And until we wake up, it's going to continue to be done to us.
Yeah, but there's something we need to do to wake up and realize that we're being played.
I don't have that answer. I agree.
To me, it's something, you did a great talk with Sean Ryan on his channel recently. And you guys spoke about, I think you asked him or he asked you, what's the singular message of Christ? No, I'm the least religious guy you'll ever meet, but I'm starting to become more religious because of how haywire we're all going.
Yeah.
And so what is that singular message that Christ taught?
Love your neighbor. That's it.
And what does it require in order to love your neighbor? You need understanding and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's eager to do that. Rudy Giuliani wants to take you down.
Yeah.
And Steve Bannon wants to make you look like an asshole.
Yeah.
And it's like, where the fuck is the love in all of this?
Yeah.
There's no love in this. It's about money and greed.
Yeah. You know what I found in it, though? I found it in more love than I knew ever existed. People came and supported me. A lot of people disappointed me. But you know what? I disappointed a lot of people. But the people that came and loved me, the people that walk up to me and say thank you for telling your story today, I think it's right within our reach. That compassion, level of empathy. And I do think that part of it has to do with people waking up. And it's more of the mask is taken off of all of it. Of the total, complete corruption of it all. I think people are waking up. I've had discussions with people that have said the most horrible things about me. I mean, like that I should be executed for treason, hung in the public square. I want to go talk to them. I want to talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I want to go talk to her. She's waking up to something. She still might think I'm a degenerate scumbag. But you know what? Let me talk to you. Let me tell you the whole story. You don't have to believe that, abortion should be legal. Let's go back to arguing about the things that we used to argue about and then be able to go to dinner together without thinking one of us was was treasonous, was a traitor. Not only to the country, but to our communities. And I know I get a lot of pushback on this, is this idea there's some kumbaya and these people have to be held accountable and Rudy Giuliani has to be, I don't give a shit right now. Literally, we just all got to come together and realize that there is good and there is bad, and we get to choose a side right now. And that good piece of it, and I'm, by the way, I was raised a Catholic, but I'm not religious. But I am a student of philosophy and a student of the great thinkers. And it's not just Christ that says this. It's the perennial philosophy. Every one of them, we are all connected. There is no distinction between you and me. And that's what I mean when that barrier comes down. The incredible gift that I've been given. Every word we speak to each other, I feel, millimeter by millimeter, we realize that there's no difference between you and me. None. There's a million things that I can see that are different. The color of your hair, you're much more handsome than I am, taller. But you know what? It's deep down, I don't want anything different than you do.
We all want the same things.
Exactly.
And I think what we all could use is a little guidance or help in learning how to love ourselves.
That's it.
Because all this hate,
and
all this negativity that we're seeing, all this separation, you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
You're evil and I'm good, or whatever. Just needs to. We need to figure out a way.
So there's this beautiful thing about it is that what realized in all of this, in terms of my life, again, not because I, went and trained with the Shaolin monk, it's just because I was forced to, like, make decisions, is that all the things that were wrong had to be fixed here first. All of it. It wasn't about transgender people. I'm not going to fix it by getting Rudy Giuliani. I'm not going to fix it by, all of it had to start here. I had to fix all of this. And I'd just be honest with myself about it. And what a fucking cool thing, though. I mean, what a cool thing. Wake up every day, and sometimes I wake up and I'm mad as everybody else. And I look at my phone and I say, what the fuck did he do to the reflecting pool? Or what did he say now? I have the same thing. And then I think, you know what? I'm going to go paint. Mother Teresa said, and I say this in everything that I do, is if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's great.
Yeah.
What would Jesus do? That should be the question we're asking ourselves 100 times a day.
100 times a day in your personal life and everything else about anybody.
Steve Bannon, Rudy.
Yeah. And by the way, the other part
Jake
of it.
Tapper, all these people need to go, what would Jesus do in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of us need to do this.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean go to church. It just means like figure out what Jesus would do in these situations.
So the hope that I have and why I'm so hopeful is that you never get to that. It's the same. Okay. So every story is the same. Every redemption story is the same. Every love story at its base is the same. Every horror story at its base is the same. And history repeats itself over and over and over again. And you never have the breakthrough, the moment of real growth, until you're at the bottom, until things start to really break, and which wakes people up. And it could either wake them up to violence or it can wake them up to love. And my deep, deep hope is that we're a world about to emerge onto an explosion of love. That's my hope.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're big on your radical honesty, and which is a wonderful thing, great tool. But I think this radical, what we could also implement is radical understanding and radical forgiveness.
That's it. That's all part of it, right? Yeah, 100%.
They're all the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, but you're right.
If we could be so eager to understand and forgive, then Rudy Giuliani would have acted totally differently, and Steve Bannon would have acted totally differently, and all these people who are acting like assholes would behave so differently, and it would transform the country.
So I'm literally inspired by you. I have this idea that I'm going to do on Substack, in which I'm going to create a space for people to come tell their stories. And it could be about grief. It could be about something that they did that they're ashamed of. It can be, and they can do it anonymously. They can do it by their name or whatever. It is literally to share it. And whether it's done through writing or video or whatever way they want to be able to do it. And this idea of, like, to engender that not only radical honesty, but that radical understanding is that idea, the thing that saved me way back when in terms of the program and things like that, is realizing you're not alone. It's the realization that you're not the only person that did that and survived. The realization that you're not the only person that lost a brother and that couldn't cope. I mean, it's the human condition, and somehow we all think that we're somehow unique in our pain. The only thing people will ever all experience, the one emotion, the one thing that every human, no matter what, for whatever period that they have lived, will experience. It's not love, it's pain. That's the thing that connects us. That's what Christ said in the Acts of John, suffering. It is suffering that shall set you free. Is understanding how I suffer. That's it. Anyway.
Yeah, so your story is amazing, and there's so many things you've been involved with other scandals too. I mean, like, and people love to pick these things out and make you look like the devil.
Yeah.
Like you ended up in a relationship with your brother's widow after he passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
That was all desperation, just pure, desperate clinging. We lost the kind of the central piece of the love of both of our lives, and then my marriage was disintegrating, and in a fog. But purely based out of love is that we grasped for each other. And I thought, like, this is the answer. Like this is how I hold on to that. This is how I protect him and his legacy. This is how and it was desperately wrong. I mean, you know, shame. How do you return from that? Well, there's guilt and there's shame. Guilt is an appropriate emotion. It's the thing that you should feel when you did something that wasn't right. And for so many reasons, that wasn't right. Shame, however, is the thing that you carry that says you'll never be worthy of love again. I can't live in shame anymore. And so I look at that. I look at the way in which I treated my family. I look at the way in which I treated my ex-wife. I mean, not in any other way in which just the amount of love that I gave her or failed to give her or was not available, that, you know, women and cheating and things, all of that. I look at that and I felt so much shame, but it was kind of the secret that I had.
But were drugs part of that scenario?
No, 100%. Yeah. And
grief is such a hard thing for people to see clearly through.
Oh my God. I don't know, I've never been more out of my mind just in terms of the inability to actually think straight for anything. And, you know, and it changes and it goes up and down and there's, you know, the grasping, you know, for answers, the void that you just need desperately to fill, that even drugs can't fill. It is really, 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 really hard. And people do really, really, really stupid things in that moment. But I can tell you this, in that instance, it was truly out of love. That's it. Nothing else. There was wasn't some romance or romanticism or romantic, you know. It was just the feeling of needing to somehow fill that void.
Yeah, and people, when that became, because you're such a public figure,
yeah,
because of your father, there are people in the media who just love to turn that into that you're the devil.
Yeah.
Without ever going
taking
to
into
understanding or
consideration
forgiveness.
anybody involved?
I'm sorry?
Without taking into consideration the lives of anybody involved? Thank Miranda Devine in the New York Post. It really, look, but here's the thing, like, who's going to complain about that? I mean, it's like Kermit Roosevelt complaining about the Hearst papers, and you know what I mean, like, it's been around forever. Mm-hmm. You know it's like George Washington had wooden teeth. You know, I mean, I don't. The tabloids are tabloids, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and complaining like that about that is like spitting into the wind. But
what do you think of our political situation now?
I think we're at desperate times. I think people need to mobilize and activate. I think that if they really do care about keeping this country,
yeah, but our current president seems to be Teflon done.
Yeah, until he's not, you know, and I think that we need to all escape from our algorithms a little bit and show up for each other, and then show up for the thing that we love, the country. I have a hat. It has my American flag hat on it. And the other day I went to put it on, and I thought, should I wear this? Are people going to think I'm like, I realized how much they've stolen from us. Pride. They made us, one of the things that he's done is he's like made a mockery of it all. Like they're all corrupt. Everybody in government is ripping each other off. That's why I'm going to steal $10 billion of taxpayer money and pay myself for, the scam IRS thing. Or this, this is why I'm going to protect my buddies that are all part of the Epstein thing. Everybody knows it, This is why I'm taking money for pardons, and this is why I'm, building, turning Gaza into a golf course. Like, everybody does it. Truth is, I've been around this for my whole life. Nobody does it like this. Nobody. They do things. There's corruption. There's bad people in government. There's people that have done awful things in the name of the United States of America. Nobody like this.
Yeah.
People need to wake
up. And people complained about you getting money from.
I never received a single dollar from this government or any other government in my entire life. If you think I have, go look at my digital footprint for 25 years. Go look at every phone call I ever made. They have literally, you can go online right now and see every single phone call or voicemail ever left from me. You can go and see every single email that I've ever received from multiple accounts. Every text message I've ever received on every phone I've ever received. Every picture with a timestamp and a geolocation. Find one instance in which you see me involving my dad in anything related to corruption. Anything. You can see, like, oh, tell your dad it was nice to meet him. Yeah, as we walked out of a restaurant. Sure. Out of 25 years? 25 years. These guys are literally Don Jr. and Eric Trump and Jared Kushner have increased their wealth that we know of by $3.4 billion in a year and a half. Through direct government contracts of the United States government, contracts with the Department of Defense, the largest single ever loan guarantee to a company, to a private company, was given of $600 million to a startup company of Don Jr.'s. Because you know what? I was an experienced, I served on, literally 17 different boards. And I went on the board of a natural gas company in Ukraine. And they said, what does he know about that? I wasn't experienced. Like, number one, I wasn't experienced. What does he know about nuclear fusion? Does he build drones when he's not selling condos for double the cost of what they're actually worth in Boca Raton? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Jared Kushner is the lead. Doesn't work for the government. Doesn't work for anybody except the Saudis, of which he's running a $6 billion private equity fund. And he's the one who's supposedly going to be ending the war in Iran and the redevelopment of Gaza that they're turning into, mark my words, into a golf course. All the people that protested my dad's position on a two-state solution as it relates to Palestine, these people have literally said they're turning Gaza into a golf course. Israelis just displaced over 1.2 million Lebanese. And I became a painter, and I had a gallery show. And it started an impeachment proceeding. It's insane. And by the way, that's the list from the last 3 weeks. How many times has he posted a picture of himself with a crown as a king? And we think it's a joke?
Don Jr. as a nightclub?
Oh, what's it called? The executive branch. It's the second most expensive private club in the country. $500,000 to join. This is all public. $500,000 to join what's called the executive branch. in Georgetown, about 4-minute drive from the White House, in which the advertisement for it is the place to rub shoulders with all of the decision makers in the administration so that you can get things done. And he charges people, I mean, like, what a grift, just on that alone. Like, you know, you're the dumbest one in the family when the thing that you come up with is a men's club where you smoke, you know, you're drinking whiskey and Cash Patel whiskey and you know, cigars
And Dad
for
is proud.
$500,000.
And Dad is proud.
Checks, writing checks. And people are literally, there's a line out down K Street of trying to get in. You think that you're getting anything done as a lobbyist in there if you're not a member of that club? I literally did not do a single piece of business, not one single piece of business. I became a painter. I sold my paintings through a gallery in New York, and every single person that bought a painting from me was hauled before Congress. We know all of their names, all 6 of them. 6 of them. 3 of them close friends. That's it. That's what I did for 4 years. Paid it in order to be able to pay the bills. Because I'm a painter.
Your art's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. Go to hunterbiden.com. I just got it up.
There you go.
Literally, for the first time ever.
There's a plug.
I'm able to put it up. Oh,
There's
yeah,
a plug.
plug. Don't, you can take the plug out.
No, I'll leave it in.
You,
I'll leave it in. Do you have a book? What the book is called? Beautiful Things.
I got a book. I got another book that's coming out soon. I don't know how I'm going to do it, through Substack or something like that. And
lastly, let me just ask you about the pardon.
Yeah.
So the last scandal I can think of,
Yeah.
in your long string of
there are
scandals.
A lot. Yeah.
There's a lot. But let's talk about your pardon.
Yeah. So start here. I'm fully aware.
Because people want to hate you.
No, I know, exactly.
And so I'm trying to give them.
No, I know.
I'm trying to clarify.
I'm fully aware that I am literally unique in the world in terms of that privilege that I was afforded as it relates to this pardon. My dad was president of the United States. He's the only person in the world that could have done what he did for me.
And what did they pardon?
Oh, they pardoned, basically everything going back 10 years. Because what people don't understand is that here's what happened, is that they started all of these investigations of me during the Trump administration based upon this bullshit, public corruption piece of it, which went nowhere because there's no evidence of it. And they had everything. They had, literally, as I said, my entire digital footprint. Every single email, every single meeting I've ever had, every single location I've ever been in. There was nothing there, but what they did find is they found someone deep in the throes of addiction. And during that period of time, 16 and 17, is that I signed but never returned my taxes. So when I got sober, I clean and sober, June of 2019, I went to, Melissa and I drove to go to to fly to Mexico for a weekend for our delayed honeymoon. And I realized that I didn't have my passport. And so I got my passport renewed. They wouldn't renew my passport. And I finally figured out the reason they wouldn't because I owed back taxes, which I truly didn't know. So I went to an accountant, and they figured out that I'd never actually returned my taxes in 2016 and 17. I was out of my mind. So I figured out what I owed, and I paid it with penalties and interest. That's what I was charged with. Because even if you pay it with penalties and interest, technically, it is still you still violated the law. It's still a felony not to pay your taxes on time. Now, take into account that 50 million Americans, I think annually, don't pay their taxes on time.
50
Not 5.
million?
Think about it. I mean, I don't know, some inordinate number. Say it's 25 million don't pay their taxes on time.
Right.
And there's literally like 1 million people that haven't paid their taxes in the United States of America for billions of dollars that have not paid their taxes for years and years, like 5 years, okay? They reach payment plans. The IRS, when they have the time and the capacity, goes to these people, and these are people that make over $1 million a year, goes to them and says, you're going to pay your goddamn taxes, or we're going to seize your, and they come to a civil resolution with it. Nobody is criminally charged with it. That's what I was charged with. During that time, also, I don't know of anyone similarly situated as me that has ever been charged with that. If somebody can find the case, let me know. The other thing that I was charged with, and they said that I lied about like business expenses that I took during that period of time.
Doesn't everybody?
Regardless. When I finally did file my taxes, I took travel deductions for business or whatever the accountants did. There was nothing intentional. And then when I was in the height of my addiction, I bought a gun. I was literally at an AT&T store getting a phone fixed, and there was a gun shop next door, and I was waiting for my phone, so I walked into the gun shop and I purchased a gun. And on that form it says, are you or have you ever been addicted to a controlled substance, including marijuana? And I checked no. And the form basically says, are you addicted to? It doesn't say, are you or have you ever been? It just says, are you addicted to a controlled substance? And at the time, as you know, addicts, I wasn't smoking crack then. I wasn't an addict. And I checked it, and they charged me with that, which is basically 3 violations of the law, which leads to 30 years in jail. Because you're lying on a federal form, possessing a firearm, under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and like something else. So 30 years, three felonies. And that's what they convicted me of. I pled guilty to the taxes piece of it. They convicted me of the other one. Supreme Court's about to overturn, making that form unconstitutional. And if my dad wasn't president, and Kamala Harris had become president, he would not have pardoned me, because I would have won the cases, I think, on appeal. But my dad had a decision to make. And on the day that he appointed Matt Gaetz to be the next Attorney General, right after that, my dad, I think, made the decision that there is no possible way that he was going to leave me to the hands of this next administration that was coming in, which is very different than the idea of, well, you still fought them. I would have been in the grasp of not just the Department of Justice, but the Bureau of Prisons, that have had complete control of my life. As a convicted felon, they have absolute right. All of your, all of your constitutional rights are out the door, in terms of everything from privacy to search and seizure. And so he, I don't know how I don't know. I do know. I'm never going to apologize for what my dad did for me, with the full understanding that what he did was something that could have only happened for me. And by the grace of God, it did.
With Trump coming into office,
yeah,
it probably wouldn't have.
Does anybody have a doubt of what he would be doing to me right now? If he could put me in prison?
He would have done that.
I actually do. I always say this on everything that I do now. Would anyone ever believe me if I was pulled over as I left here and a police officer found drugs on me? Or if I was walking in through an airport and there was drugs in my bag? I take pictures of my bag before I fly, and always have somebody with me when I pack it. Has there ever been a time in the United States of America that I know of, at least not, maybe during the Civil Rights Movement, in which Americans were scared, or an American citizen could actually legitimately say that in front of a camera and everybody go, yeah, guess you're right. They're capable of that. That's the difference between politics and what we're experiencing now.
You got to be crazy almost to put yourself up as a candidate for president.
I think so, but I sure hope somebody, and I know they will, somebody will emerge that will at least lead us back, I think, to some semblance of sanity, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be a fight.
We need it.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden, thank you so much for...
It was such an honor.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
You're a delightful guy to talk to.
Thanks. Yeah.
I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thanks, brother.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
The book includes multi-page spreads of both Rebecca and the Whitaker family. I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out, so once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.